Foremost, I want to welcome everyone to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. My name is Jerry Shockey, and I oversee all the youth and educational programs here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And we're always excited. This is the first one of the year, so I'm really pumped up to get this school year started with our Heart of the Hall of Famer series. And many of you have participated in this series before, maybe not the students, but the teachers. But for the students that are connected in, the real idea and premise behind this program is to show what it took to get in the Hall of Fame beyond just the athletic abilities. We know that folks like Mr. Eller there are great examples of athleticism, but it took much more than that. And I know many of you have studied the 6 pillars of character, the trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. Those are at the core. Those character qualities are at the core of our Hall of Famers that have allowed them not only to be successful on the field, but as you'll see, especially with Mr. Eller, they've been quite successful off the field because those character qualities carry in every facet of life. So we are extremely excited to be able to give you guys the opportunity here to interact with one of the greatest football players that have ever played. Just to give you an idea of how elite Carl Eller is. Since the NFL started in 1920 here in Canton, Ohio, there have been over 22,000 players that have played in the National Football League. There are only 273 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and out of those 270, 230 of them are players. The rest are coaches and administrators. So you're in pretty elite company there with Mr. Eller. So with that being said, a program like this cannot happen without without the support of a number of folks. And first and foremost, we have to thank our friends there in the Minneapolis area, New Hope, Minnesota. Our friends at Robbinsdale School District at Cooper High School, Christian King, I know Jane's not there today, but Jane Prestebach, the administration, all those folks there, we really want to say thank you for opening your doors and allowing Mr. Eller in for this program. So without you, this wouldn't be possible. We also have to thank our friends that many of you have gotten to know over the years now, our friends at ETech Ohio through our State Department of Education, Mark and Paul and Dave and Josh and all those folks there that are troubleshooting all the technical things and getting this all connected. Thank you very much for all your help. We have to thank all the teachers that are involved in this program for all the school districts. It could be the teacher, could be the tech coordinator, could be the conference coordinator. There's a number of folks that are involved with each of these schools to make this possible, so thank you for your support and these programs. And then last but not least, we have to thank the students because they are the real stars of the show. You guys are going to be the ones driving the program, so to speak, today with your questions. So we are extremely excited to have you guys participate. So before we go into our introduction of Mr. Eller, what I always like to do so all the schools can see where everyone's coming from is I like to give the schools a chance to give a little shout out for their school. So when I call upon that school, I'm going to ask you to unmute your microphone at that point and give a little shout out of school spirit. That means teachers, close your doors on your classrooms. If you don't have a door, I'm sorry for letting your kids shout in your classroom, giving them permission for that right now. So if we will, to start the program off with a shout out, can we have, now Mr. Eller, go ahead and plug your ears just in case they get loud there. If the students there in New Hope at Cooper High School, if you want to give a shout out, go ahead. Make some noise. Whoa. Thank you. You worried me there for a minute. I thought, Mr. Eller's going to have to give a head slap to one of you guys to wake you up there. So thank you, Robbinsdale Cooper High School. Let's go to Pennsylvania, Edinburgh. General McLean, if you're there, go ahead and give a shout out. Yeah. Not bad, not bad. Okay, very good. I see you guys got your green paper there out. Looks like you're ready to take notes. That's awesome. Appreciate that. Let's go to New Jersey, in Parlin, New Jersey. Samsel Upper Elementary.
All right, dudes. Shout it out. Go ahead.
All right. Winners so far. There we go. There we go. Thank you very much, Samsel. Let's go to Trophy Club, Texas. Byron Nelson. That's close. That's close. Thank you, Byron Nelson. You guys going to stand for the whole program?
Okay. What?
You guys going to stand for the whole program?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. They're smart and fit at Byron Nelson. So, okay, very good. Let's go to Byron Nelson. You can mute your microphone there. Let's go to Newark, Ohio, Newark Digital Academy.
Hey! Woo! Go Newark!
Where'd the young man go?
He was crying, so we gave him a break.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead and mute there, Newark Digital Academy. Let's go to this is one of my favorite places to go to because they always put me on the big screen there. Let's go to Aspermite High School in Texas. There I am.
Oh, there you go now.
Thank you, Aspermont, and go ahead and mute there. And we like to recognize they're a view-only school. They're connected in, but they're not going to be saying anything throughout the program as they have to shift kids in and out for the program. We like to say thank you to Aledo, Texas, Aledo High School there. I know you are tuning in as well, so we appreciate your support and your connection here today. With that being said, what I'd like to do is go ahead and introduce our featured speaker here for today. And obviously, as you guys know, that is Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Carl Eller. And let me read what we like to do with our Hall of Famers is break them down based upon on the field and off the field. And I think what you'll find, and as I said, Mr. Eller is a great example of this, is that you'll find that their off-the-field accomplishments are usually even greater than their on-the-field accomplishments. But let me go ahead and read a little bit about Mr. Eller. He was selected in the first round of the NFL draft by Minnesota and the AFL draft. Many might know that there was an AFL and an NFL that eventually merged, became what we know as the NFC and AFC. It was an AFL draft by the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, he went with the Minnesota Vikings. He quickly established himself at left defensive end on the Vikings' famed Purple People Eaters defensive line. He was excellent at stopping the run, devastating pass rusher. And now, even though it wasn't an official statistic, at that point, it wasn't until the early 80s, he amassed 44 sacks from 1975 through 1977. Excuse me, did I say 1975 to 1977? Named first or second team All-NFL each season from 1967 to 1973, and he played in 6 Pro Bowls. And then obviously he was bestowed the biggest honor that any individual player can receive, and in 2004 was enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the pinnacle of success for an individual player. Now, off the field, there's a bunch of things we could share about Mr. Eller, but I've just kind of honed in on just a couple in particular, and one of those is one that he's very passionate about. He has become one of the most sought-after speakers on brain damage and head injuries that cause dementia, Alzheimer's, in the NFL retirees. As the founder and president of the Retired Players Association, he fights for those players who have fallen on hard times due to medical conditions, psychological, or personal problems that affect their quality of life. So obviously, when we're talking about those 6 pillars, caring is one of those pillars that stands out there to me in Mr. Eller's background. Retired Players Association founder and president Carl Eller is now in a position to help former players from the National Football League gain access to much-needed medical care and improved pension benefits. Since his days as a consultant for the National Football League, he has gained national attention as the leader in the field of providing care and treatment for the National Football League current and former players. Many of his programs are in use in the NFL and sports leagues all around the world. Carl is a private citizen and as a leader of the Retired Players Association is active in his community and nationally in areas of green energy and environmental movements that invested in sensitive environmental cleanup issues, including redeveloping foreclosed properties on the north side of Minneapolis, Minnesota. He is a small business entrepreneur with a big business attitude. And this is what Carl says: my goal is to maintain the integrity and preserve the character of our urban areas while improving the quality of life for its citizens. So I think you heard 2 words there that you're probably studying your 6 pillars: caring and citizenship. And I think those are 2 that really stand out in Mr. Eller's off-the-field achievements. But before we ask Mr. Eller to share his opening remarks and then we go into Q&A, I would like to show you guys a little bit quickly here about his on the field.
All-American at the University of Minnesota, Carl Eller was the Vikings' first-round draft pick in 1964. Number 81 proved worthy of his high draft status, becoming an integral part of Minnesota's famed Purple People Eaters. A member of the 1970s All-Decade team, Eller was elected to 6 Pro Bowls and named first or second team All-NFL NFC 7 times.
Okay, and if everyone for a moment can unmute your microphones and join me in giving a warm round of applause to Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Carl Eller. Mr. Eller, well, first of all, if all the schools can mute your microphones now, Mr. Eller, the microphone is yours, sir.
Well, first of all, let me thank you, Jerry, for putting this together and all the people at E-Tech that are behind this. And I want to send a special thanks out to Cooper High School and the staff and teachers here. This is a school that's not far from my neighborhood, so it's a school I'm very familiar with, and I'm aware of a lot of their sports teams and things like that. So it's a real honor and a pleasure for me to be able to do this today. I think the topic, the heart of a Hall of Famer, you know, where we talk about the character things that are important off the field, is a great opportunity for me to talk about some of the things that are important to me. And Jerry, I know we're trying to separate the sports and the football from real life, but so much of my life has been involved in football, not just on the field, even though I've done other things. I feel like as a player, I've kind of brought those things along with me. So I approach a lot of the things that I do, I think, with the intensity, with the sincerity, with confidence, in the fact that I think I seek out tough problems. I don't know if that's a category or not, but a lot of the things that I think I've done since football is things that have given me a lot of satisfaction. You mentioned caring and things like that, but you know, in so many lives, you know, people don't have the really good fortune that I've had a chance to have, you know, as being an athlete. You know, I grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, by the way, and came to Minnesota on an athletic scholarship. Was able to complete my education years later, but and being in Minnesota, so I consider myself a citizen of Minnesota, and I've lived in North Minneapolis, which I actually take a great pride in, because where I live is a great location. I have parks and all that stuff around me, and plus it's convenient to almost everywhere. But the idea of being a good citizen is really important to me. I try to be a model, you know, where I live and those kinds of things, and I'm excited about that. I often get people coming to me, and this is an idle claim because I have a big yard. I meet a lot of adults that go around, well, I used to cut your grass when I was younger, but it's not true. I never had these guys come around and help me cut my grass, but the thought is good anyway. But you know, these the pillars are great, and I think that they go along with the sport, is along with real life. So even though we're talking about off the field, I think these are characters that you carry with you, and they don't separate or, you know, distinguish from one phase of life to the other. So again, I'm happy to be here. I'll turn the program back over to you, and my thanks again to all the people here.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Eller. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go around from school to school, and again, remind all the schools to make sure that you have your microphones muted until we call upon you. We're going to go 2 questions from each school, and we're going to rotate around, and we're going to go in the order as, first of all, as you can see, there's students there by Mr. Eller's right. We can see 1 or 2 of the students there. I think student with the white right next to Mr. Eller, you want to wave? Hi. There we go. Okay, we can see you, so be careful. All right. But now we're going to go to questions from first from them, then we're going to go in the order of General McLean, Samso Elementary, Byron Nelson, Newark Digital Academy, and Aspermont. So you'll go ahead, mute your microphone or unmute your microphone, but immediately following after you ask your question, just to minimize or eliminate any distractions, go ahead and mute your microphone in between each of your questions as well, so we can eliminate any background noise or anything like that. As most of you know, these microphones, you can hear me tapping there, they're pretty sensitive, so they pick up a lot of background noise. So if you mute in between as well. For the students in there, and with Mr. Eller, make sure to speak up so we hear you in the microphone, or I will ask Mr. Eller to repeat your question if I cannot hear that. So with that being said, let's start with those great students there at Cooper High School in New Hope, Minnesota. Go ahead with your first question.
Hey, Dana.
All right. What was the worst injury you had, and how did you overcome it?
What was the worst injury I had, and how did I overcome it? I'm one of those players that was fortunate that I had very few injuries. I think the worst injury I had was a torn cartilage in my knee, and it happened in the early part of my career. And it's one of those injuries that's fairly common, actually, and particularly in football, but it's not a very serious one. Any injury is serious that requires surgery, but it is on the lesser scale. Like Adrian Peterson had an injury that you guys are familiar with here, who plays for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, his injury, by comparison to mine, would have been a much more serious one. So that was one injury. And then I have an injury on my thumb that was broken, actually, and broken again in the same place in a game from playing. And it's a serious injury that requires surgery, but in the whole scheme of things, it's not really what some guys would go through, and probably more typical in the NFL. Thank you.
Tony?
Okay. Do you have any negative influence in your life?
Did I have any negative influence in my life? Well, they start right off with the serious questions, don't they?
Let's get it started,
well,
right?
Okay. I'm not sure what I signed up for here. Did I have any negative influence in my life? I sure did. I think I really had negative influence when I was younger, probably as far back as high school. And I've heard a lot of players say this. I think that my negative influence was by my peer group. In other words, I was looking for a place to belong, a place to kind of fit in, and it was actually before I started sports. I didn't have a lot of self-confidence, and so I was influenced by the kind of the people around me, and since the negative influence had such low standards, I could fit in. It didn't take much. But the point is that I gravitated towards this group to probably feel a need to fit in, and that was before I got into sports. So sports sort of pulled me out of the pool of negativity, I guess. Good questions, thank you.
Great question to start. 2 questions to start off there. So thank you, Cooper High School, and let's go ahead and go to General McLean in Edinburgh.
What was your greatest achievement after professional football?
I've had really a good life. I've done some really important things. After I left football, one of the things I did is I opened up a treatment center here in Minnesota and was able to work with a number of people through counseling, and many of those people were able to solve some of their life's problems and gone to a higher quality of life. I think I'm really still working on what I think will be my greatest achievement, and this is exciting, particularly at my age and at this point in my life, and I think that that's important. Maybe we'll touch on that in a little bit, but the stuff that I'm doing now with the Retired Players and Retired Players Association, I'm really excited about, because I think that I think that athletes and athletics in general have kind of gotten a bad rap, you know, and I certainly with the Hall of Fame, this is true. You have these real high quality guys and people, and that more than anything is what I'm impressed with, like the quality of the players that are in the Hall of Fame and their character, and also their achievements. I mean, they have achieved really great things off the field, and that's where I'm working right now to really highlight athletes and particularly professional football players, their life after football and their life off the field, and to really start to realize that these guys have great capacity for achievement. They have great intelligence. They have great integrity, and so I'm still involved with that.
General McLean, if you have another one, go ahead.
Do you experience any discrimination within the National Football League?
And that question, again, I know discrimination in the National Football League. What was the first part of that?
Did you experience any discrimination at all within the National Football League?
That's hard to quantify. And my approach, and I started in professional football in 1964 with the Minnesota Vikings. So my career in college and in high school was like the early 60s, and when all the civil rights movements were going on in the South, and there was a lot of turmoil around that time. It's really interesting because I think that my attitude and my approach to life was, even if there were discrimination, and there was a lot of it. I mean, it was everywhere. That was the nature of the land. That was the law of the land, particularly in the South, is I didn't let that stop me. It was something, it would present probably more of a challenge to me. And that probably began to set some of my earlier personalities and characters, is that I wanted to be judged, and this, of course, Martin Luther King came along, you know, later and around that time, but I wanted to be judged as an individual and for my own contributions. And to give you an example, I remember one time, and this would have been in the late 50s, and you guys can probably ask your parents and go to the history books about this, but it was an era of Jim Crow, you know, and Jim Crow is like you had the separation between the blacks and between the whites. And on this one occasion, I started to work very early because my family was, you know, poor family, you know, and so in order to get things, I really had to go out and work for it. And I remember one of the first jobs I had, and I was so proud of myself because I had money to actually go and buy a hamburger. And with the money in my pocket, I went to this little drive-up stand, which was in my neighborhood. I was actually walking to town and strutting to town because I had money in my pocket, which was unusual. But I stopped at this stand, and there was a young girl there, was a young white girl there. She was the server at the counter, and she says, "Well, I can't serve you because I was black," and of course that wasn't permitted. It would have actually been breaking the law had she served me, and she couldn't do that. My response is that my money and the money that I worked so hard for was equivalent to any other money, and that I deserved to get the services that I was seeking. And so rather than to go around to another entrance, which would have been the service entrance or the kitchen entrance, I kept the money in my pocket, and of course I didn't buy a hamburger, or I didn't spend my money at that store. And of course, you know, went on. I didn't get a hamburger, obviously. But I think there was something about that made me realize that I do have choices. You know, I can make a choice to go along with the situation, or I cannot make that choice. And I'm very proud of that even till today, because I think it set a tone for me in my life, is that there are things that I can do without if I have to sacrifice my integrity to get it. And that's just something it's been a quality that I've stuck with, and I think it's very important in life.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I know Robbinsdale, you seem to be getting every bell in the world right now. So hopefully they don't call a fire drill on you guys and you have to leave the building. But all the schools that are connected in can definitely appreciate that, as they've all encountered that as well. But one thing for the students to give a little perspective on that time, you know, our country was going through a lot of transitions through the 40s, 50s, and into the 60s. From, you know, the civil rights movement to things that you guys study in your textbooks, Rosa Parks, Brown versus Board of Education. Well, football was going through those same transitions as well. You had a lot of things taking place. The Redskins were the last team to integrate in the early 60s. You had Brian Piccolo and Gale Sayers being the first black-white roommates. So football was going through that same transition as society. And obviously Mr. Eller faced those issues on and off the field, as you heard him say. Thank you, General McLean. Let's go to New Jersey and Samsville Upper Elementary. If you have two questions, go ahead with your first one.
What advice would you give to today's players after they end their career, and how do they become regular citizens?
Okay, I want to applaud that young man there. It was a great question, and actually it's kind of where I work. Jerry, what I want to do before we leave the previous question, and I'll come back to this question, what I do want to say about the NFL, and I think that was a very good point, one of the things that was attractive about the NFL and also about sports and athletics is really you compete and the best man wins. You know, I mean, it's just like if you've got the talent and if you've got the skills, in most cases, almost particularly in football and with the NFL, that was the guy that was going to get the job. That's not always true, but predominantly true. So I just wanted to clarify that. That was really one of the great things about the NFL. And back to your question, young man, about how do I advise people to prepare for their career after sports. That's really what I'm involved in, because what you realize is no matter what kind of sport you play, and particularly football, it really is a young man's game. So if you're preparing or anticipating to have a career in sports, you must also anticipate and prepare to be out of the game at a very young age. Most of our guys play 1 or 2 years, so they're still in their early 20s to mid-20s when their football careers are over. So there's a lot of life that goes on after that. And what I recommend is I've actually developed a plan, which I was alluding to, that I'm working now, I'm excited about. And it's called Game Plan 2. And it's based on the idea that and this comes from the athletes themselves, that they dedicate their lives so much to become an athlete because it requires that dedication and it requires that commitment, that oftentimes they sacrifice other areas of their life. So my proposal is that they seek balance, is that they become more well-rounded, and it's sort of like not putting all your eggs in one basket. And that program is called Game Plan 2, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to offer that at the college level here pretty soon. The other important thing about this is that as football only lasts a short time, and it's an admirable goal to seek, is that life doesn't stop there, and there are other peaks and there are other achievements that a person can accomplish. And I have another model that I call Eller's model of maturity, well-being, and life balance. And it's kind of a counterpart to Maslow's a theory of achievement. And then you're going to hear that in all your schools. They're going to talk about the Maslow's pyramid. Well, Maslow's idea is that you seek self-actualization. In other words, there's that pinnacle that people will come to at some point in their life where they realize their dreams and their goals. My model really talks about that's true, but I think that in a lifetime, those pinnacles and those peaks will occur multiple times, and that you may reach a peak here, particularly if you do it early, is that you can achieve some other kinds of things. You can reset your goals, reset your sights, and go and achieve really just some other great accomplishments. And there are examples of people that do that or have done that. So I really call it Eller's model of maturity, well-being in life. This is new to your teachers and new to your schools, but it's hopefully something they'll become familiar with as we go on. And I think it's just kind of a new model of how you look at life. You can start out with something really that's exciting for you, that you really want to do, but after you accomplish that goal, life doesn't stop there. You set other goals, and you continue to grow and prosper. But really, an excellent question. I thank you for that.
Yeah, great question. I think exactly what he's talking about. Mr. Eller was asked recently, some of you might know, or you might have done research on him. He was asked not too long ago to address on pretty much that same subject with all the NFL rookies, and he did so here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame as all the NFL rookies came in over the course of 2 different days where he addressed them. So he was addressing, those athletes that you guys know about today, Andrew Luck with the Colts, RG3, about those same things about life after football. So he is, highly sought after and an expert in those areas. So I think he's an amazing resource for the National Football League and others, and players, most importantly, for their after careers. With that being said, let's go back to Samso. If you got another question, go ahead.
What event in your career, aside from being inducted into the Hall of Fame, are you most proud of?
Well, the Hall of Fame, I think, is really the it's hard to top that. I think that's my most, for me, the dearest achievement to me. And again, as I said, I think it's because the quality of the gentlemen. I played against these guys like Roger Staubach or Gale Sayers or, many of the guys that are in the Hall of Fame. I know how good they are, and I know how hard I had to work to challenge them or, when we had to play them. So I'm aware of their quality of play, and it is exceptional. But also, these guys are the most humble group of guys I think I've ever been around. They don't talk about their accomplishments on the field, So it's not like, I know in some neighborhoods you're going to go, these guys go, I did this, I'm so bad, I'm so tough, I'm so cool, whatever. We don't get that from the Hall of Famers, and I don't know, I think after you've had success from hard work, you realize that a lot of people go into helping me be successful, and I think it develops a sense of gratitude, that yes, what I've accomplished or what these other guys have accomplished has really been the result of many, many people helping. So the Hall of Fame is really my crowning achievement, I think, in the world that I've lived in so far.
Great question, and that's one of the reasons why, as part of our core mission here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, is to promote the positive values of the sport. We really think that team environment that pro football creates with 53, 55 guys on a team, but 11 on each side, it's the ultimate team sport. And many other elements in life function the same way. Your families function as a team. Your school functions as a team. Your business, my business here at the Hall of Fame, functions as a team. Even this broadcast with the folks there at Cooper High School and E-Tech, Ohio, and Mr. Eller, we function as a team. So there are a lot of positive values and a lot of reflections that you can take from the game of pro football and apply them to pretty much every element of life. So we think that's why it's a core mission of ours, is to promote the positive values of the sport. Thank you, Samso. You get great questions there. Let's go to Trophy Club Texas, Byron Nelson.
Turn it on. Mr. Eller, you were a 5-time first-team All-Pro selection. How did your work ethic reflect your accomplishments?
My work ethics reflected my accomplishments because I was really aware of the competition. The one great thing about sports is that your opponent is going to challenge you. It's not an ill-gotten gain, because whatever you do, you're going to have to earn it, and the only way to do that is to work for it. So I mentioned other Hall of Famers. Like one Hall of Famer I played against is a guy named Bob Brown, and our careers really parallel each other. I mean, he was a tiger, or a monster. monster, man. And he would like come after you. I mean, he would want to like put you out. You know what I'm saying? It was like he was not a nice guy. The Bob Brown on the field and the Bob Brown off the field are two different people. I think he went. I don't know. It was Dracula or something. You know, But no, he was a tough competitor, and he took pride in his work. I mean, he's not going to come out on the field and say, hey, Carl Eller beat me. No player wants to do that. I, on the other hand, was going like, hey, Bob Brown's not going to beat me. I'm not going to let that happen. And so in order to do that, there was preparation, and I had to work harder. I had to overcome whatever obstacles I thought. A lot of times I had to prepare ahead of time for things that maybe didn't happen, but just in case they would, I wanted to be prepared. So hard work was integral to my success. And I find that in all the Hall of Famers, a lot of guys will say, well, it's natural talent, God's gift. I think that's true, but that doesn't accomplish it without the hard work to go along with it. Thank you.
Great question. Great question. Let's go to another one there from Byron Nelson.
Who was your inspiration throughout your career, and why was he inspiring, he or she?
One of the guys that inspired me actually goes back to my youth, just of going into high school, and the gentleman I think that had the most impact on me was a gentleman. His name was Norman King, and he was a neighbor of mine. And as I mentioned, I grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Well, the thing that impressed me is that he was different from almost everyone else in my community. At that time, he was in college, and he was also an athlete. And what attracted me, he had on like one of his workout suits or his jumpsuits, and I just went like, wow, that's cool, you know. And then he explained to me what he was doing. He was a track star, was not a football player. And Winston-Salem State College had great track teams, particularly in the hurdles and stuff during that period. And they won a lot of fame because of that. And he was one of those guys. And he opened up a whole nother world of possibilities for me that I didn't know existed. And that was a real motivator for me. It was the first conversation that I had with anyone that there were other possibilities out there. And that's important. I think exposure to ideas and opportunities are important as you grow up and as you live. And you never know where these come from. And you talk about, we go back to where I live, and I talk about the kids in my community and stuff like that. It's not that I have direct contact with them, but I know what an influence Mr. King was to me, just simply that he was a role model, and that influenced me, and I think that led to a lot of the things that came later in my life. So if I can be an influence, or if I can be a role model, or if I can set an example by living where I live, then I'm very happy about that.
I think it's important to note that, you know, with these role models, not only having role models is important, but allowing those role models into your life. I know we have you know, I shouldn't say it's funny, but it's weird that, you know, in sport, if we have a problem in sports, you know, or we need to get quicker, we need to get faster, we know we'll go to the coach and say, hey, how do we do that? How do we get bigger? How do we get stronger? And we'll work on it. But it seems like sometimes in the classroom, if we're struggling in a class, you're kind of embarrassed a little bit to ask for that help. And I think we need to get past that. So allowing those mentors, allowing those teachers and those principals and brothers, sisters, and pastors and all those folks that are in your life to help you, to be a mentor in your life. I think that's really important. Let's go to Newark, Ohio, nearby here. Got a couple questions? Go ahead.
Hey, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Who was the toughest running back you faced?
Who was the toughest running back? There were quite a few of them, actually. I played against a favorite in Ohio, Jim Brown, but a favorite around the world. I mean, Jim Brown was just kind of an epitome of running backs. But I played against guys like Gale Sayers, who, in my opinion, I think was really probably the most fearsome. And the reason he was so fierce, he was so quick. and he could change direction so fast. And then from his spot in the backfield, and you guys are familiar with football or sport or something, I'm like this close to the guy across from me, and he's sitting in the backfield. And by the time I would hit this guy who's like this close, he would be like right there on me. And boy, you couldn't do both of them. There was no time to hit one and then hit the other. You basically had to do it at the same time. And I was always totally impressed by that, because what his goal was that once he got past the line of scrimmage, the defensive backs really didn't have a chance. In the open field, he was so quick and elusive that he just made defensive backs that literally just roll over, because he called it take them out of their jock straps, you know. But he was really good, and in the open field, you know, he was amazing. He was all around running kick-offs and punt returns, and just really, really great talent. But there were other guys like Tony Dorsett, Franco Harris. All these guys are different styles too, but they're great competitors and tough to defend against.
Legends.
Do you have another there, Newark? Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
What is your legacy as a Hall of Famer?
What is my legacy as a Hall of Famer? Well, I don't really know. I mean, my legacy is a Hall of Famer. But one of the things that I know is that I was a good pass rusher. And at the time that I came in, and coming from the University of Minnesota, you had to play, in the Big Ten was a big run game, you know, big running backs and stuff like that. So in college, I was really a lot concentrated on the running game a lot. And I became a pass rusher. That was in the early years of the pros. I had to develop that skill. And there was a move that I did whereas I really can't demonstrate. Who wants to demonstrate with me right quickly? Give me the Bronco guy right here. I got it. It'll be my chance to get him, okay? Here, come on up here. And I know we're having problems with the video, but we'll try and keep it right here. But I'll show you. And he's gonna be an offensive tackle if he's not. Okay, here we go.
He is the lineman.
And what I would do is I'd line up against this guy, and what I do is I kind of push him with this hand like this, and I do what they call the overarm, and then I could push him that way. And that was kind of a new move that we did. But thank you. I've given him a lot of heat already for that jersey. But that was kind of a new move. But what it was is kind of a use of physics and balance and all those things. But it allowed, if by getting this arm out of the way, I could elude the tackle. And so Joe Green, who played with the Steelers, and some other guys go, hey, that was a great move. We copied that move. So that might be my legacy, if that's what you mean.
I coach D-line, and so I'm gonna teach them that tonight.
It's a hard move now.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Newark. Go ahead and mute there, and we'll go to Aspermont, Texas. Go with you a couple questions.
Oh yeah, so I'm first. What motivated you as a football player, being that you were such a strong force for the Vikings?
Well, you know, part of it is let's go back and talk about teams. And I was fortunate again, and I'll revisit this theme of teams and teamwork. I played with a couple of great guys on that line with me. Starting at the other end was Jim Marshall, who played in almost 300 games and never missed a game in 20 years. Jim was kind of our spiritual leader. In other words, he always responded to the call. And that was a real motivation. So because if you can imagine, week after week, you get bruised, you get beat up, you get hurt, everything's going on. But then on Sunday, you got to come back and play, and you got to play at guys across the line don't take pity on you. So if you're weak or if you're hurt, that's just too bad. They're going to come after you anyway. You know, so one is you didn't want to get hurt, and if you did, you tried to get rehabilitated as quick as possible. So Jim's the epitome of that, never missing a game. And then right next to him was Alan Page, who was the only defensive lineman that's ever been voted most valuable player. have to put a footnote into me. He kind of surpassed me, and I was the best defensive lineman, but he was the best player overall. So we were on a good team, and then right next to me was Gary Larson, who was Gary was an ex-Marine, you know, so it was kind of like he was on a mission, you know, to seek out the quarterback, or if they ran a draw play or a screen or something, he was kind of our you know, our ammunition for those kinds of plays. So that was my other team. We motivated each other, I would say, to answer your question.
Go ahead with your other astronaut.
If you could give us one piece of advice, what would that be?
One piece of advice. Boy, I'm gonna be a genius or a goof off here. We're trying to answer this question, but I think the best piece of advice I can give you is to believe in yourself. You know, each of us have real talents that it takes a long time to discover, and it's unfortunate that, you know, at this age, at this point in your life, is that sometimes that's hard to find, and I know that without that real confidence and belief in yourself, it can lead to people making poor choices. But what you'll find is that you are unique in very special ways, and maybe you haven't, or maybe a person doesn't find that until they, you know, mature or find something that they enjoy. But have faith and confidence in yourself. Really believe in yourself. Really believe that you can do it. And don't shy away. This is two pieces of advice. Don't shy away from the hard things because they're tough or hard. Dig into that. Learn those skills and overcome those as well.
And I think students, you know, the other thing with that is, you know, you're a lot of times your folks that are around you, your teachers and your principals, they may see something in you that you don't. So you know, allowing those mentors in your life to help, you know, in many cases help shape some of the things that you may or may not know that you excel at. And so a lot of them, you see teachers maybe pushing you in a certain area, and you're like, man, just quit bothering me, you know. They may see something in you as well. So again, it goes back to letting those mentors, you know, into your life, those positive mentors into your life. So what we're going to do, I think we got time for one more question from each group. We'll go back through one more time. So we'll go back to Robbinsdale. If you have one final question from your group, go ahead and ask that.
I can ask a question.
Okay.
How has football changed since you've played?
How has football changed since I've played? Fundamentally, it really hasn't, but theoretically, it really has. There's a lot more passing in the game. Players themselves are a lot more specialized. In fact, they have more players on the team. I played when there was a 40-man roster. They have about 13 guys, literally a whole nother team on the roster now. And one of the biggest differences is in the position that I played as defensive end. A defensive end now is they don't combine them as much. One's a pass rusher, which will typically be in on passing downs, which could be any time, but their talents and their skills are more prone to rushing the passer, and another guy may be better at attacking the run, and that's where you see it in other positions as well. So there's more substitution.
Thank you, Robbinsdale, and let's go to Edinburgh, PA. General McLean.
If you could do one thing differently, what would you do?
Well, I'm a parent, you know, and I think the thing that I would do more is spend more time with my kids.
Great answer. Great answer. Thank you, General McLean. Samps Elementary, Parlin, New Jersey. Great question, too, by the way.
What do you see in the NFL today that has improved or hurt the game?
Well, I think one of the things that has improved the game is It's probably more off the field, and it's probably, I know I was involved in collective bargaining agreement, but they're looking at the players after their career and they're taking note of that. So that's a big thing. People like to talk about players, you know, their size and their quickness and those kinds of things. Players have gotten bigger on the offensive line, but I think that's almost restricted to the offensive line. You know, so size-wise, that's really changed. I don't think they're as quick or as fast as we were, or I was anyway. But, you know, you can think what you want.
And he brings up a good point. The NFL has really changed. And it was been the early 90s that the NFL started a player development office really there's a liaison for each NFL. There's a person with each NFL team, just about every team now, a couple staff members, that their job is to help the players off the field, help them with furthering their education, or helping them with, you know, really when they come in the NFL, they may have never bounced a checkbook before, you know, how to deal with the media, how to deal with the pressures, how to deal with family members. These are all things that maybe you don't think about as you join the NFL. But with that, the average NFL career, according to the NFL Players Association, is only 3.5 years. So most of these guys, you only see a handful of Peyton Mannings and Brett Favres and Carl Ellers. There's a lot of folks that may have made the practice squad for a year or two and then were eventually let go. So these player development offices really help them, you know, get their feet set off the field. So I think that was a great point that Mr. Eller brought up there. Let's go to Byron Nelson Trophy Club, Texas.
What inspired you to be involved in counseling, and why is that important to you?
Well, one of the things is that, you know, one of the things I have are life experiences, and I think that those are important, you know, that I can relay those or relate to other people that might be having some of the same difficulties that I had. And you basically learn, I think, certainly through education and through the classroom and things like that, but you also learn from the experiences you have and what life teaches you. And be able to help someone else and see them change and their life change and get better. And it's hard to claim that I had a big part in that, but it's just happy to see that. I'm happy to see people who are accomplishing things that they want and that are important in their lives and that they're having success. That just gives me a great thrill.
Thank you very much, Byron Nelson. Newark Digital Academy?
Go with it.
As a counselor, how did you use your experiences on the football field as a tool to help people who are going through a hard time in their lives?
Very close.
One of the things that I think that as a football player is you learn that there may be obstacles, you know, that you face, but you don't turn away from it, you know. So you may have something, for example, I'll talk about Bob Brown again. I mean, he was a dynamic player, man. And actually, I'll talk about another player. I'll talk about Forrest Gregg, who's a Hall of Famer, and with the Green Bay Packers. It took me the longest time to beat him, you know, and like a couple of years before, I felt like I had a successful game against him, that I had the upper hand. And I think what that taught me was to don't give up, don't quit, you know, keep working. And I think that that's kind of an optimist point of view, is that no matter what the problem is, I can overcome it, I can find an answer, I can work at it, I can get help. You know, there are a lot of solutions to overcoming obstacles. That's probably one of the most important things I've had from football.
Thank you.
Great question, Newark. Great question. And let's go. We've got last question from Aspermont, and maybe we'll go to some closing remarks from Mr. Eller, and we'll close the program. Aspermont, are you there? Going once? Going twice? Okay, well, you know what? We'll go, since they were the host site, we'll give them an extra question. Let's go back to Cooper High School. You guys probably weren't thinking of a question, so I put you on the spot there, and that's part of life. Sometimes you get thrusted into the spotlight, so here we go.
Go ahead, Jared.
I was wondering when you was on the field, did you ever get frustrated at a game because you thought the coach wasn't making the right kind of calls or the players was not playing right?
The question, Jerry, is that when I was in a game, did I ever get frustrated or mad at the coach? First of all, Jerry, did you plant these guys in here with these questions? These are some pretty tough questions all around.
They are well prepared. We talked about that.
I can see that.
They're well prepared.
I can see that. But yes, there were times when I did get frustrated, and that was one time. I'll tell this quick story. I remember I was playing a game. It was against San Diego, I think. And they had a play where the running back would come out and he'd try to clip the defensive end, you know, and cut you down and stuff like that. And so when he'd come out, I'd see him and I'd kind of float outside. But the quarterback was back there, but the guy was trying to block me out here, and I get outside so the quarterback couldn't roll outside. But the coach couldn't see that from the sideline, so I came to the sidelines, and he was actually being at me, you know, what are you doing? And I was trying to explain this play because he couldn't see it. And then later, and we were watching films like the next day, he goes, wow, that was an incredible play. He says, I don't know how you did that. So is it sometimes you're really right to stand up because maybe they don't have the same viewpoint that you do. But basically the coaches will prepare you, and I very rarely had disagreements with the coach. It wasn't that I always liked what they said, but basically I had confidence in them and trusted them.
And, you know, Mr. Eller, you've shared a lot of interesting thoughts and advice today, and you know, especially in the works of preparation, and you know, as you addressed with the rookies before, leaving a legacy off the field, and you know, you've had your experiences with counseling, and now you know your real passion is helping retired players and being involved with that. There's a lot of things you're involved with. If there's one message, and maybe you've already conveyed it, but if there's one message you want these kids to walk away from from you today about who Carl Eller is, what would that be? Put you on the spot.
Jerry, first of all, let me congratulate you and everybody else who's involved with the putting this on. My experience has been great, so thank you. You know, I think the one message that I would leave, and one that I'm experiencing, is that the world is wonderful, and that there are exciting things out there, and learning never really stops, you know, and I learn new things all the time, that things that and sometimes I seek information, things that I wondered about or I was curious about, and I go out and find these things. And my life has expanded to other areas. I also am involved with art and those kinds of things. I do ceramics, and boy, so I'm excited every day to get up, and that to me is just fantastic. I was excited about today. I was a little nervous. I'm going like, hey, I want to do a good show. That I think that I still have that drive. I want to be successful in whatever I do, and I'm glad I still have that. I don't take life, you know, for granted. So, and I think it's a lot easier for me to say at this point in my life, but you know, it's a lesson to someone that's younger, because they're going to face, you know, obstacles and get, you know, discouraged or whatever. But boy, hang in there and keep at it, man, because life is wonderful and certainly worth it for sure.
Well, Mr. Eller, I think, and I think the students will agree, that you did an outstanding job, and your preparation was apparent in today as well. So if all the students, if you can join me, unmute your microphones and join me in giving a warm round of applause to Pro Football Hall of Famer Mr. Carl Eller. And Mr. Eller, let me just personally say thank you on behalf from Steve Perry and our executive staff and everyone here. Without the support of you know, our Hall of Famers, our enshrinees like you, you know, these programs aren't possible. So we greatly appreciate you taking out of your day and you know, giving some advice to some young people that I think are going to take this advice back and apply that to their lives and make it even more successful because of the experience they've had today. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you too.
I do have to thank all the folks involved. Cooper High School, thank you so much. We've got another broadcast in about about 30 minutes here for another round with Mr. Eller. So we'll be connecting back with you guys here shortly. But let me say thank you first of all to Cooper High School. Thanks to our friends at E-Tech Ohio and the State Department of Education. As always, it's not possible without you guys. Thank you to all the wonderful questions you guys had here today. Those students in Robbinsdale, General McLean, Samso, Byron Nelson, Newark, Digital Academy, Aspermont, and then Alito for tuning in as well. So we'd like to say thank you. Hopefully you'll make the trek here to Canton, Ohio someday to come see Mr. Eller's bronze bust on display. And hopefully you won't stick gum or anything on it. You'll treat it with the respect that it deserves, right? But just want to say thank you, and this concludes our program. Take care.